All right. So one of the ways that we like to start in somatic stress release is through what are called arrival practices. And these are practices intended to bring us back into relationship with our body. Now, I just want to name that's not always our the goal. Sometimes when we're having a lot of strain or overwhelm or overload, coming back can feel kind of challenging or overwhelming to even be in relationship to our body. So I just want to say in these arrival practices, we are intending to come back into our body, but it's a permission to how much it feels right for you, how much it's okay for you to come back in relationship to your body in this moment. Ultimately, it is through coming back into contact with our body that we get to process through things. And with that, I just want to make sure I give you that permission. So in all of these practices, you can pause at any point and say, I feel like I've arrived or connected enough. And so that's an important thing to have for you. So with that, I'm going to invite you to just begin to notice the space around you. So this is the environment that you've decided to watch this in, to take this session in. Just becoming more attuned or in relation first to your space. Good. And if you're more oriented or related to smells or visually oriented or auditorily oriented, just focusing on where you connect most easily into the space, whether it's the sounds, the smells, the temperature, the colors or the textures of the space. Or even if it's touch, to make contact with something in your space. Whatever it is that you're choosing to focus on, as though you could come out to meet that, as though you're coming out to visually meet the colors or the sound or the smells. So you can arrive to that smell or arrive to that sound. Good. And then we're going to shift our focus to letting that sound or that smell or that touch or that color arrive to us. So receiving that color, receiving that sound, receiving that touch. And then can you even receive it a little bit more? And so that sound or that color first is received on sort of the edge of your body, the edge of your eyes or the edge of your ears. And as you receive it that much more, it's as though it can begin to enter inward. That color can come in. That sound can come in and be received. That touch can be received in. Those colors or smells or sounds can be received and arrive inward. And as they arrive inward, so can your attention land and arrive in to what's being received. From that sense of arriving inward, slowly beginning to expand your awareness out, back towards that sound, back into the colors or the shapes of your space. Good. And as you arrive, as you connect again to this space and what's in the space, noticing just how much more you feel present or arrived in yourself as well in this space. Good. When you're ready, taking a moment just to find some movement as a way to transition just slightly. Movement of your arms or the shifting of your weight side to side. Movement of your head, torso, pelvis, and legs. So we talk about movement as a transition, but it's also a way to integrate. So that as we move, we're taking that sense of arrival with us. As we orient into the space again, we're taking that sense of arrival with us to whatever degree we can in this moment. And if you want to take some time to keep moving or to write anything down, you're welcome to. So I'm going to give us another 30 seconds of integrating however feels right for us, and then I'll start speaking again. Okay. So in arrival practices, which is again this process of reorienting or coming back to our body, which is another approach or technique or technology of essentially coming back into what's present, to what's here, to come back to a sense of agency or power within ourselves. And or to come back to what's here, to meet it in order to process or move through it or utilize it or learn from it. And in arrival practices, I sort of classify them under three different categories. And that's under what's called exteroreception. And I'll define those in a moment. Or exteroreception, sort of our senses, utilizing our senses to help us arrive. So I'll say there's an infinite amount of information that we're in constant conversation with, most of which we're not conscious of at any time. It's, when you attended to the sounds of the room or those colors, that's that point in which we become conscious of that sensory information. It means that we're suddenly in focus, but we were always in relationship to it. It was already there. We're just now attending to it. So there's a constant dance between ourselves and all of this infinite sensory information. Now, that feels overwhelming to you, just kind of move or take a few breaths. And so part of what we're doing is utilizing the sensory information that's around us or in us at any time to help anchor us into ourselves. That's the intention of arrival practices. So we have exteroreception, which is our sense organs. And that was a practice of utilizing our senses to and receiving some of what's in the environment inward and letting that give us a sense of arrival into ourselves. And we also have proprioception and kinesthesia. So these ideas of movement or relationship to gravity and movement, our relationship of our body to our body, which we'll do next as a practice. And then interoception, so the internal movements and sensations within us as well, and attending to those as a way of arriving into ourselves. Okay, so we'll do two more practices in this section of arrival. There's lots of arrival practices, but I just wanted to give us an overview, and you have those available for us as we sort of navigate the rest of the day, and we're sort of drawn into the computer or drawn into some really interesting information or processes. How do we bring ourselves back here to be part of a deeper conversation that's also happening? Okay, so I'm going to bring out a little model, make sure it's closed. So this is a water bottle with cashews. And so we're just going to take a moment just to watch the movement of the cashews sort of migrate across the fluid environment. This is not the practice, by the way, it's just a model. But if you find it hypnotically relaxing, then sure, we can consider it a practice. Okay, so I just want to demo this so we can explore it in our own body. This sense of movement, these little kind of pebbles. Okay, and the mobility of them. Now, while we don't have cashews in our body, we do have something kind of similar, and within our vestibular system. So we're going to explore that same kind of imagery, and I'll bring this back in a moment too, of these cashews or pebbles in a watery environment that get to actually mobilize and move. Yeah, and sometimes we could even imagine that it's the cashews that are moving the bottle. Yeah. So for us, we're going to bring our hands in front of our ears. So kind of resting on the cheekbone. And I say in front of our ears, in our intention, it's including our ears, but if we plugged our ears, you wouldn't be able to hear the directions. So if you feel like you need to rest your arms at any time, if you don't have a surface to rest them on, you can absolutely. So I just want to let you know. Sometimes if we rest, we kind of lose the tonicity in our head. So I would suggest starting without resting your hands, if that's a possibility. So if it feels right to close your eyes, you're welcome to. If you feel like you need to keep them open, you're also welcome to do that. So if you imagine this bottle, like with cashews or with little pebbles inside, and as your hands rest into your cheekbones, your ears, they're tapping into this watery environment, this fluid environment. We'll begin to shift our head either to the left or to the right, going slow. Sometimes we can move our head or our neck, and that doesn't necessarily guarantee that these little cashews or pebbles get to move. We really want the movement of our head to come from the migration, the mobility of those little cashews or pebbles. Really letting the pebbles and cashews move gently, migrating, floating in that fluid. Letting the fluid and the migration of those pebbles or cashews gently pour your head to the side. And when you're ready, you'll pour to the other side, coming back to neutral. Notice if you do it from more of this muscular place. And can you instead really invite the fluid to pour to the other side and the cashews or the pebbles in your inner ear, behind your cheekbones, to pour through that fluid, to bring your head slowly to the other side. You find yourself holding your breath or gripping, see if you can just find some exhales. See where it might be okay to release those pebbles and allow them to move on their own. Your own timing, shifting from side to side, one or two more times. There's no rush. You have all the time in the world. You can always rest your hands when you need and still do the practice. So we're really inviting and allowing the sense of weight. It comes from the pouring and the mobilizing of these little pebbles, little cashews. And as you pour from side to side, we're just going to gain a sense of weaving our head into our neck. This means that our neck to feel connected to our head, even as these little cashews get to pour from side to side. And the head and neck weave into our chest, shoulders, and arms. And the head and the neck, the shoulders and arms weave into our chest. So we're just allowing this pouring from our head to help us weave and connect our head and our neck, shoulders and arms into our chest. If you find yourself gripping somewhere, can you release? Allow those cashews, those pebbles in the inner ear to be free. As you weave your head, your neck, into your chest, into your abdomen. And weaving your head, neck, chest, arms, abdomen back, all the way into the pelvis through this gentle pouring of weight, fluid weight in your inner ears, in your cheeks. You notice again your neck try to take over, or the musculature of your head. Just let it be this pouring, this pouring of fluid, like these pebbles or cashews that get to move and pour from side to side. As your head connects into your neck, chest, weaving into your abdomen and pelvis, which weaves all the way through your legs and feet. You might even begin to play a little bit with that pouring, even front to back, if that feels good. Pouring of the fluid in the cashews into the forward space and back. Or if you just wish to stay side to side, you can as well. whatever direction you choose to be pouring in this moment, just letting that sense of mobility and weight help weave your whole body from top to bottom. Taking all the next minute to explore. And then finding a place to pause when you're ready. Noticing where you feel more arrived or present in your body. And then beginning to orient back out into the space. So it might be finding some movement side to side, connecting back into the sounds or the colors. And I'm going to invite you to, I just opened up the chat box again. So I'm just going to invite you to share some of what you recognize or feel in response to that practice, that arrival practice. Knowing that some arrival practices work better for us than others. What are some key words, maybe one or two words in response that you feel in your body in response to that? I just invite you to write that into the chat box. One or two words. So balanced, centered, spread of ease, flowing, vertigo. Yeah, can shift our sense of that. Connected, present and aware, softness and warmth. Tired, centered, fluid, holding and softness, not sure, calm, serene, sense of flow and connection, like cashews. Softening, release of tension in your jaw, sadness came up. Yeah, that's an also important. Thank you, Annette, for sharing that. It's an interesting process. The arrival practices are not necessarily intended to give us to calm us per se. That might happen as a process of just being given ourselves the permission to land and arrive in ourselves. And then with that, as we go through these layers of sort of awareness of intimacy with ourself, we might then also arrive at certain sensations or feelings that have been waiting for us to arrive and connect with. So that's also something that can happen. Simply the process of being able to arrive And that connection to ourself can offer that sense of calm, as many of you have shared, or flow, or connection, or restoration. Absolutely. Yeah. Great. Thank you for sharing, for those of you who shared. And so I'd like to do one more practice. Again, so we started with a practice on exteroreception, arrival practice with our senses. And then we shifted to more of a proprioceptive and kinesthesia experience. So finding where our body is in relationship to gravity, and from our body to our body, or parts of ourselves to ourselves. Yeah. And those are different ways, and developmentally speaking, these are the ways, our first established ways of finding who and how we are. You know, later on when we go, oh, I'm a dentist, or I'm a astronaut, or whatever, those are much more superficial to these very primal ways of learning who and how we are, and how we explore, and who and how we are in relationship to the world. Yeah. So these arrival practices are also very primal in their intention, getting us back into our language of connection, which is sensation, feeling, breath, movement. Great. Are you up for one more arrival practice? You can get a thumbs up if that's okay. Okay, cool. Sometimes we can overdo it on arrival. You might have arrived fully on the first practice and you're just like, I'm good. Let's get to the stress stuff. But we'll do one more arrival practice. And this is all related to the stress stuff. So okay. So this is a practice. Again, this is our interoreception practice. This is the internal movements and sensations, and sorry, I'm just shutting off the chat for a little while. So one of the things that we'll do in this practice is what's called a sound bath. So we're going to make some sound in specific areas, intending to just open up our awareness with that vibration, and then just allowing whatever movement wants to come. So we're just inviting kind of an expression of what's already here through movement. It's a relatively simple practice. So we'll sound into different parts of our body, and after each sounding, so we'll do about 3 to 5 sounds. It might be the sound of ooh, or voo, or om, whatever kind of vibrational sound works best for you. Yeah. Good. Ready to go? Okay, super. So we're going to place our hands, actually place your hands wherever you would like to start for this one. So that might be on your chest, your back, your neck, your head, knowing that you're going to migrate your hands when I make that suggestion throughout the practice. So start where it feels right for you. Yeah, it might be head or chest or pelvis. Good. So I'm going to start the sound, but then I'm going to silence myself so you just hear your sound. So we'll start with a exhale. Then inhale, and let that feed into the sound bath internally. Repeating the sound several times. And then on the next few sounds, letting whatever has been touched by that vibration, by that sound bath, just to find some movement as you make sound. almost as though the sound will begin to emerge from that part of you. Good. One more sound, and then we'll migrate our hands to somewhere else. Good. And before you migrate your hands, just pausing for a moment here, just to feel or receive whatever warmth or texture or qualities or sensations or feelings are here underneath your hand. As though even through the presence of your hand, you can contact these sensations, these feelings. And when you're ready, we'll migrate our hands to the next place that might want to be contacted, sounded with, knowing that we'll do one more after this. So finding that place that feels right for you. Exhale. Inhale and sound. Letting that vibration bathe that area. Letting the sound even be made into the space, letting the sound be external. Letting the sound be audible. And as that vibration bathes into that part of you, beginning to find whatever movement wants to emerge, as big or as small, with that sound. Almost as though the sound begins to emerge from that space. Taking a few more sounds, cycles. And then pausing to be with whatever sensation, feeling, imagery is here in that space. Letting your hand just be the contact to whatever it is that's present. Good. And what feels right now, perhaps, is we'll just complete this practice with 5 sounds bathing the whole of our body. So a more full-bodied sound bath. So your hands might migrate or just stay in one spot, where we sounded into and from a local area. Now we're going to just go more globally as a way to end this practice. Inhale, global sound bath. Letting whatever wants to move with the sound move. Two more before finding a pause. Finding a pause just to be with whatever sensation, feeling, imagery is here. Letting your breath or the contact of your hands be an acknowledgement. Even if there's nothing that emerged, it's an acknowledgement of that. And then once again, noticing what in you feels more arrived or present. And then perhaps even what does that sense of arrival or presence feel like? Another way of saying that is what gives you that sense of being that much more present or arrived in yourself. And you might wish to write that down as a practice. If you need a way of integrating or transitioning from this practice, just attending out into the environment once again, or simply moving into writing. You might wish to write into the chat. What is it that gives you that recognition? How is it that you experience or know a sense of arrival or presence? So for some of us, it's stillness. A sense of wholeness, a sense of vitality or life force, warmth, touch, and openness, sense of tingling or more aliveness through sensation. There's something that releases in sense of integration, sense of uprightness, or Great. Calming, quietness. Great. Great. So to reiterate, These are just different practices of arrival, of making our way with our attention and our contact of our experience back in towards ourself. And whether that's eventually to just be here with something or to process or to help metabolize it in the case of, or to help us adapt or make choices. So all of these are intended as our entry point into any type of stress or trauma work of how can we regain some semblance of our wholeness or of ourself to navigate what has been experienced or happening either in ourself or in the environment. Okay, good. I know that was a long time to do arrival practices, but I really wanted to make sure that we offered at least one that would suit sort of everyone, because for some of us, this might not have done anything, or sounding might not have, or breath work might not have. And it really shows sort of our individual level of what we need in order to feel okay or to be able to arrive back to ourselves. And this really is, our own individual healing journey. There is no universal technique per se. I think that's especially why we have such a beautiful array of facilitators today, because something one person may say may open something up or support us in one way, where that might not be the case for someone else. And that's this beautiful process of the dynamics and the complexity of our own journey, our own healing or wellness journey. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. We'll enter into a little other material. All right, so I'm going to invite us, as we're we're just expanding the conversation from arrival into the conversation of stress. So I would like you to start by writing your own personal definition of the word stress. So this is a writing practice. Now, for those of us who are clinicians or avid readers or explorers, you might have a definition that you have read in a textbook. That's not the definition we want here. We want your personal definition. So this is if a 7-year-old in a elevator asked you what does stress mean to you, this is the thing we're writing down. It's a personal thing as opposed to a concept or conceptual idea of it. What does it personally mean for you? Okay. And we're not gonna write it into the chat box yet. Okay. So take another minute to write down your personal definition, like a sentence or two, not an essay by any means, just something that feels like it's in relation to you as opposed to a concept. Good. And then writing your relationship to stress on the next, like another sentence or two. What is your personal relationship to it? Cool. Do we need one more minute? Does that sound good? Okay, let's take one more minute of writing our personal definition and our relationship to it. I'm going to stop my screen share. Okay. We all have a definition? Can I get a thumbs up that we're okay, cool. So I'm gonna have you stand up. You can grab your definition, take it with you, and just stand up where you are. Okay. And let's move this a little bit. Cool. All right. And I'm gonna have you take your definition with you of your stress. And I'd like you to read it out loud 3 times. Okay. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, go. Reading it out loud. Just the definition. Good. And when you've done 3 rounds of reading it out loud, then I'd like you to see someone in one of the other video screens and as though you could read it to them. Okay? You might be reading at the same time, but that's okay. So you're going to read it to them 2 times. Your definition, stress is, and then go ahead and read it out loud to them. So we'll want to see your mouths moving. Great. Good. And then come back and read it one more time out loud. One more time. What is stress? Your definition. Good. And then when you're done, you're going to grab that pillow, find a little wall space. You're going to put your back against the wall, bend your knees. Okay. Might fold the pillow over. Good. You're going to find a squeeze of the pillow. And then feeling where the the wall is coming to receive the weight of your body. Can you see where you can say yes to being received by the wall? Hugging the pillow into your front side. Then once you feel that sense of support of the wall and being supported by the wall, we'll add just a gentle rocking. So shifting of our weight side to side, finding as much or as little of the squeezing of the pillow as you need. You find a rocking as one shoulder, one pelvic half moves in to the wall, and then the other. Taking another whole minute, letting yourself be received, to receive the support of the floor and the wall, and to be received by the floor and the wall. And to find this fluid rocking side to side. Good. Taking another 15 seconds or so on the rocking. And then pausing, noticing what you notice as you pause. And noticing what feels different now than when you were reading your definition. Good. Okay, and then we'll make our way back to sitting. Good. You can even, we'll take a moment just to write into the chat box. Just what does something feel, does it feel different now in your body than it did when you were writing, or excuse me, reading that definition? So there's a sense of more stillness or integration. I feel like I'm back in my body. Felt very vulnerable when reading the definition. Now it feels more cared or nurtured. Good. So partly why we did that practice is to clarify or articulate, to have a differential so that we could identify, oh, I had a response. How many of you were aware you had a response while you were reading it? Yeah. How many of you became more aware that you had a response after you did the wall practice? Yeah, so there's some of us too. We didn't even recognize we were having a response to what we were reading until we created a differential, until we created something that was kind of different, a different state than one we were just in, that was evoked by what we were reading or sharing or expressing or experiencing. Yeah. Can I get a thumbs up? Does that make sense so far? Okay. So we don't always know the state or what's happening in this inner experience. And yet that does have a profound effect on our thoughts and our behaviors, our actions. Yeah. And sometimes we know and we don't know what to do with it. And so that's all of those things are what we're navigating, especially when we talk about stress. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna bring back my screen share. Okay, great. Natalie, is it up on your end? Super. Okay, so we talked a little bit about what was our personal response to our definitions. And we might not even recognize we didn't even maybe know we would have a personal response. And so that's starting to go into what we want to talk about here, which is a perceptual language loop. And this is usually when, when I first started working in stress management work a long time ago, I had a definition that was textbook, and I just assumed that that's what I should be working with. And when I started asking people what their personal definition of stress, I started realizing we started working through things a lot faster. And then later in school, started studying things on neurolinguistics and understood, oh, the power of a definition is that it illuminates our perceptual lens. So it illuminates the sort of glasses to which we are viewing the world. So our language, our definitions illustrate our perception, our perceptual process. Yeah. So our definitions give us clues or clarity as to the way in which I am, again, viewing something. It is the giving us information as to the lens or the filter to which I am looking at something or experience something. Can I get a thumbs up if that makes sense? Is that clear? Okay. So our language helps us orient, or our definitions gives us an orientation to the way that we are perceiving something, the lens. Yeah. Because we're not neutral. We all have our own life experiences in our process, and nothing is sort of neutral. We have these lenses called our perceptual lenses, to which is how we are viewing something. And why that's important is because the way we are viewing something informs the way we are experiencing it. The lens to which I wear, if I wear red glasses outside, I see the world as through red lenses. If I wear green lenses, I see the world through green, but it doesn't stop there. That's then how I experience on a somatic, on a body level, what it is that I am viewing. So even my definitions of stress, or as we go through this process of looking at trauma today, my own personal definition is also how I am viewing it, or how I'm viewing things in the world, and then how I am experiencing it. So it's important to first, one of the things that I find really important is for us to unpack our own understanding or our own perception of something. And that's not easy to do. So one of the sort of shortcuts into doing that is by understanding our own personal definition. I'll give you a example. Um, I have a couple examples I like to use. So not so long ago, but long enough ago, when I was talking to my sister about like organic food and nutrition and stuff like that, and she kept saying, "Ew, like organic, ew," and I was like, I don't really understand why you're ewing organic food. And I never really asked her until some time later. But that was, her ew was because what I eventually found out is because she had assumed that organic somehow meant unwashed or dirty, which is cute. I mean, she's older than I am, but it's cute. But that's how the lens to her definition of organic essentially meant something that was unwashed and uncleaned, and kind of put into supermarkets as like uncleaned. And so that is how she saw it. That is how she saw organic apples, is through that lens of unclean. And it didn't stop there, because she then had a visceral, a somatic experience in relationship to those apples, which was filtered in through her definition, her perception of what that meant, organic. Is that clear so far? So this is why we want, especially at the beginning of a day when we're looking at something like stress and trauma, why starting with our own arrival and starting with our own definitions is extremely important and helpful. It gives us insight to how we are seeing things, how we are experiencing things. Yeah. And some of the ways, some healing techniques in relationship to trauma are about expanding our perception, are expanding our vocabulary of how we are perceiving something. When we had a impact in our life, whether it's a developmental impact or an attachment impact or an event that was an impact or a relational impact, that can start to create the lens to which we see things, to which we see the world and then experience it. So sometimes it's about letting something process through, which we'll talk about. And other times it's about getting to repair this perception that has been locked into place and is creating a certain attitude and behavior and orientation to the world that may now no longer be supporting our well-being. Yeah. Okay. Is that clear so far? Interesting, right? Okay. So let's explore a little process with that. I'd like you to write down 8 stresses, 8 stressors. Yeah. So I'm not going to give you examples because my examples will be different than your examples because we have different perceptions of what that means. Yeah. So write on a piece of paper, just 5 to 8 stresses. Cool. Okay. So next, I'm going to have you grab another piece of paper and pen, and we're going to make something like this. So it's 2 lines down and then 1 line across. So there's 3 sort of spaces to write. I'll also show you what that will look like on the next slide. Here we go. So you have 3 lines. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to give you a definition for each of these, but I'm not going to actually give you examples. And I'll explain why. It's not that I'm trying to be withholding from you. So on the left, on this, we'll see eustress. And this is we'll call it a positive response to stimulus, to pressure, to demands. It's something we might be taking a chance on, in something we want. Yeah. A eustress is anything that helps us bring our attention and focus in towards essentially working towards our short-term or long-term goals. It can be something that kind of helps eventually replenish our resources. Cool. Is that clear? Super. Tolerable is the category in the middle. That's it is more of recognition that there's some demand on our resources, our capacities of adaptation, but at the same time, it's within our ability to navigate it. We have the resources to weather the storm. It just takes a fair amount of resources. But within our capacity, just maybe more nearing the end of that capacity. But yeah. Okay. And distress is when it exceeds our capacity It exceeds our resources. And this is often where we'll see distress, is where we'll see sort of more of the chronic fatigue, sleep challenges, um, disordered responses, autonomic responses, kind of immune responses, stuff like that. Cool. Okay. So I would like you to take your 8 stresses and take one at a time. Feel into it. Feel, where does it belong in this category, in this moment? In this moment. And then place it into that category. So you write it down. But really take that moment to feel into, where does this reside within this scale in this moment? Let's take maybe one more minute. Okay. So let's write into the chat box. What did you discover in response? To go from the sort of larger category of something into sort of into something a bit more organized or and represented by where it is. So what do you notice for yourself in starting to separate these out? I'll have you write into the chat box. All tolerable, not as bad as I thought. All mine were in distress. Yeah, they might be. Um, uh, recognize that they're actually not in the distress category. So that was a difference. Again, not as many as you thought in one category that you expected. Yep. Great. So there was something balancing about it. Some of it was surprising to find that they were in a different category. And this isn't about trying to get them in a specific category. It's not like trying to go, oh, all of these distress need to be in the eustress. It's more about looking at how we might be assuming a larger category of stress and starting to recognize, where am I in relationship to them? That's a perceptual shift of starting to be able to recognize that it's not all one, as opposed to, and starting to differentiate or clarify, where am I? Where am I in relationship to this? And if I recognize they all are in distress, that's information that lets me know, oh, this is right now, something is beyond my capacity and my resources. And then I can go, oh, well, how do I expand my capacity? Or how do I expand my resources to navigate this? What do I need? If it's intolerable, sometimes that awareness of just switching from this sort of kind of intense concept of distress to tolerable can actually give me that relief of going, oh, this is within my ability. Or, whoa, this is actually a eustress. This is something that is able to help me fine tune my attention and my focus and ultimately replenish my resources. So that's a tool that we can use to simply take it out of a globalization of stress into where I am so I can better meet what's here. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, that's what we want, is to be better equipped or more aware of where we are and where we are in relationship to something. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. So in that sense, our perceptions are flexible. The way we viewed something as a global category of stress and then starting to place it into more of where it is a perceptual shift of something, which can have an impact on the way we experience it. Okay. So we'll talk about one or two more things before we wrap up. And, another important perceptual orientation is stress is a global category. It in itself is holding two major components, which is a stressor, which is a stimulus, and a stress response, which is what's present within us. Yeah. Often we can, in a fair amount of stress work, they're focusing on navigating work with the stressor, which is fine. That can be helpful. But what can sometimes be forgotten, which is more brought up in somatics work or embodiment work, is what's happening within me. Because I can't always navigate or fix or change the stressor, but I can negotiate and be in relationship and work with what is happening in me. So remember when we went back to the definitions and some of us didn't even recognize we were having a response to even our language around stress. That was our stress response. Yeah. And can often, because our response, not necessarily the stimulus, but our response is actually navigating, is in charge some ways of the way we're thinking, the way we're feeling, the way we're behaving and acting and expressing. So we might blame the stressor, it's fine, go ahead. But it's actually what is happening within us that's driving the way that we're seeing, feeling, experiencing, expressing. So coming back and arriving back into our internal response gives us back agency and power. And we might go, okay, I'm turning into my body. Oh, there's this energy, there's this tightness, there's this heat. It's because of that thing. And all of a sudden we're back out away from our response. And so we can just notice our tendencies to attend to the stressor as opposed to attend to our response of what's happening within us. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to talk for a few more minutes, and how that all comes about. And this is a model we use in somatic stress release. Is that stress response that you're feeling? Here's another perceptual lens change. That heat, that tension, all of that is what's called activation. And activation, I don't know why I said it like that. Activation is, it just means it's a reading of energy in order to adapt or change. It's perhaps a different perceptual lens. You're like, but you might be going, but I have this tension in my chest and this heat and my jaw is locking. Yeah, all of that is your particular way of activating, or that you experience part of this activation. And that activation, that energy, and the way it's emerging or freeing up in our body is intended to go towards a mobilization, some type of actionable response or expression. All of this is all just about adapting. And that mobilization, when actualized, then brings us into a deactivation. So it's the coming down from that arousal energy and more into our intrapersonal experience. What's our feelings and sensations of what's happening? Yeah. Which then brings us into restoration, which is a restoring of resources so that we can do this all again, because this is the cycle, the stress response cycle is our cycle of adaptation and navigating the dance of life. Now, I'm not saying this is always easy. In fact, there's a lot of things that get in our way and make this challenging, but this is our biological process of stress. When this is interrupted, we can see things and call them different names. Some of them is what we might call trauma. Yeah. So if we think of a wave, like an ocean wave, we have this rising, all this kinetic energy that's rising. This is the activation, the curling of the wave, the expression of it. That's mobilization. The actualization of all that kinetic energy. The deactivation is the coming down, as that kinetic energy is settling itself through after being actualized. And then the wave returns back into the ocean for this kind of restoring, to do it all again. This is the dance of our nature. Yeah. And this is, so just to review all of these things, what my intention for this session as a setup for the rest of the day was a lot of practices on arriving, being more aware of what might be happening within this, within ourselves. And then to start to go from there to look at definitions and perceptions, because that is a big component of how we will be taking in any information or experience of what's coming throughout the entire day. And to recognize, oh, I'm having some activation. What might be helpful to do next, which is to mobilize it, to move. And then to let that move through us. So with that, I just want to say thank you all so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So Natalie, I'll let you end, but I just want to say thank you all so much for being so attentive and adventurous in exploring.
One way that we like to land the session, Scott, is by asking you, as you know, a final thought or quote that has been inspiring you and your practice in life lately.
Sure. One of the things that I like to think about in terms of re-perceiving stress is this beautiful process of this dance of adaptation, and this dance of that, the stressors are part of this dance of life, and that we have this innate system to really be surfing and in flow with it, as opposed to just resisting and fighting it. So that
beautiful. Thank you, Scott. And one more thing I'll just mention, Scott's website www.drscottlyons.com. I know you're going to be offering further training in somatic stress release coming up in 2021. So if you're all interested, I highly recommend.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.